It's a pleasure to introduce another member of our expert panel. It's Santiago Alba-Corral, who is the Senior Manager for Policy, Innovation and Partnerships with CARE Canada. He worked for 10 years in rural development and environmental issues in Europe, and then relocated to Southern Africa, where he worked as a technical advisor with the International Aid Agency of Spain. Before moving to CARE in 2010, he was a technical and research director at Action contre la Faim in Canada. He has worked extensively in Africa as well as in the Middle East. Received his master's degree in international agriculture and rural development from Cornell University in Ithaca, New York, and a master's degree in environmental auditing from the EU and a bachelor's degree in agricultural engineering from the University of La Rioja in Spain. So it's a pleasure to introduce Santiago to you.
Thank you. Well, I apologize because probably in the next 10 minutes I'm going to lose my voice. So, and I'm going to try to do it shorter. Apparently, a week of workshop in Peru was too much Spanish speaking and too much pisco. So that doesn't help either. I don't know if I'm going to be able to say much more that has been already told, because really we are going around what is needed in this top-down. And I was asked to explain what is the CARE approach to ensure that individual programs really are sustainable. And I think that's the main reason why they are not sustainable, is because they are individual programs. And we will see what is the CARE approach. I think the bottom up, I even was surprised that we're going to have a panel, because it's so obvious that we don't even have to have a panel. This is real, how things must be done. We all know that if somebody's hungry, we cannot give him or her a fish. Everybody knows that we have to teach, and I will say no. We don't have even to teach how to fish. The matter is to sit down and ask, how do you fish? Do you like fish? Do you know that your neighbors don't fish? Have you ever tried to fish in that way? Who cooked the fish? And when we move that paradigm of fishing, really we are looking at development in a different way. And I think that's what really matters in this approach, changing how we think our interventions. What CARE is doing right now across all CARE International, around the 80 country offices that we have, is to move what we call from the project to program approach. We are no longer looking at individual interventions, small projects. We are trying to zoom out how we look at the reality, and then trying to see who are the actors, what is the government policy, what are other NGOs doing, what are communities doing, what are local NGOs doing, what are donors trying to do. And in this big picture, identify what we can do better, and the big other word is start partners, start working together. International NGOs have been working mostly because it was difficult to work in some areas through partners, and we have to work with partners. And partners are communities, and partners are universities, and partners are national governments that have their policies in place, and partners are other NGOs. And I think in this sense, we are doing a very good job globally. There's a lot of things to do. And I think the big movement of global clusters, when we talk about the emergency response with the UN reform, and I think the water sanitation, the WASH cluster is one of the best ones in how they work together to respond to emergency humanitarian issues. The way that we sit down together in the same table so that we don't replicate, that we don't do everybody doing the same well in the same village after the tsunami, so that we sit down and really think. The other aspect of this integration for us is the integration of sectors. I think Suzanne just presented a great case. It's not such a thing as a WASH intervention, or as a maternal health program, or as a food security program, or as a nutritional program. All of them are interconnected, because if I don't work together in this integrated approach, where I have all the pieces of the puzzle, things are not going to work. We will have a beautiful nutritional program based in increasing productivity and variety of foods, but if people are not washing their hands, we are not doing probably really change. Or we can be doing this beautiful wheel, but if people doesn't have an economic development program where they have the finance to support the running water in the future, probably that is not going to work. So that's something that we have to look at. That's something that we have to discuss when we talk about discussing policies with donors. Because donors, and I would say the international NGO world, have been working in silos. We have the WASH people, and we have the food security people, and we have the nutritional people, and we don't talk each other. Because we do what we do. And we have a funding program to do WASH, and then we cannot introduce nutrition. That is the kind of dialogue that we have to open to change policy as well. How we really look at things in a more organic way, because things are not, in communities that we work with, they don't see a difference between a WASH project or a nutritional project or a health project. It's their life, it's their daily life. So we have to change the way that we work. By integration, representing a humanitarian organization is the continuum from emergency response to development. How many times do we know that a humanitarian response to a tsunami, a drought, a crisis, is not taking in consideration the long term, and we are therefore undermining the future of that communities. What Kerry is doing right now is all of our strategies are one. We have a WASH strategy that goes from the emergency, resilience, long-term development. A food security strategy is one, so that we try to work in a way that if we intervene here because there's a crisis, a humanitarian situation right now, we build with the communities a way that is a future to that intervention, that we are not undermining markets, that we are not destroying traditional ways of living, etc. It's not easy. I cannot say that it's perfect, unfortunately, but it's the way that we are going. And I think the other big piece on all this, has been already mentioned, is gender. We cannot forget half of the population, and half of the population that probably is doing 2/3 of the job in developing. And by gender, we means that we are not working with women. We are working with women and men and boys and girls, that we integrate all of them in the design. We cannot, there's this case in Afghanistan where in a very beautiful participatory approach, there was a discussion about a new water point, and it was built, and there was all these focus groups, and everybody was there, women were there. They were not talking because there were too many men. So the new water point was put close to the village and no 5 kilometers from the village. And a month later, the pump was destroyed by women, because the 5 kilometers walk to the water point was the only moment that they have to chat, to talk about their things, to not be at home with all the men and everybody and the kids. And so they didn't want to stay so close to the water point because they lost their moment of luxury walking with their friends. But nobody had really talked with women apart, with men apart. So that gender approach, that gender strategy, CEDA has a very interesting one, integrating all the actors really is the only way that we can make that participatory more interesting. The last piece I want to touch in is the importance of proving our impact. In order to change policy, we have to have a strong monitoring and evaluation system that make us learning organizations, that gave us the reasons to prove national government, international donors, how we can do things. CARE has right now 2 experiences, one in Peru and one in Kenya, where our water and sanitation model, because we were able to prove and to test how it works, are right now national policies. Because we can share it, and we share it with other partners. But we cannot do it without spending money and resources in evaluating, in monitoring, in bringing the research institutions to our programs. And the last piece for the role that international NGOs play in the north, the economic north, is how we tell the story to Canadians, how we communicate this. Right now, CARE has a program, it's called Walk in Her Shoes, where Canadians can register, and you have to walk every day 8,000 steps minimum, which is the average distance that a woman must walk to go to pick up water or food. And during, I think it's a month, people register for a week of a month, they have to walk these extra 8,000 steps, walking in her shoes. These kind of messages that put reality, as you mentioned, of what really is going, not in developing countries, but in majority of the world. And I think that's the change in the language. It's not developing countries. We all are developing in different levels. It's the majority of the world. We have to be able to transmit to the public and to the policymakers. And I think that's the 10 minutes, and my voice is still there. Thank you.